Welcome to the Hello Seattle podcast, a local perspective on living in and moving to Seattle.
Yeah, we're excited to introduce you to people, places, and communities that make living in our hometown special. Hello, Seattle. We're back with another incredible episode today.
Yeah, super excited to be here. I'm Zach McDonald, your real estate agent with Real Property Associates.
And I'm your host, Dan Keller, your mortgage guy. And today is all about real estate and home inspections. And one of the reasons why we wanted to make this as quickly as we are is, one, home inspections are back. Thank God.
Yeah, definitely.
And number two, even though they're back and they're being used, and we'll explain what that means here in a minute, there's strategic ways that you can leverage a home inspection in negotiating, one, to protect you, and number two, to get a great deal. So we got one of the best in the area on today. And this is more, I'm going to hand this more off to you, Zach, because you as a real estate professional deal more with the home inspection process.
Yep.
We as lenders really actually don't even want to see it. We just encourage our clients to get one.
Definitely. Yeah. We don't really want you to see it either. Just causes problems.
Yeah.
But we got Geff Spry with Hawkeye Home Inspection with us today.
Hey, guys.
Geff helps a lot of my clients do their home inspections. And as we chat today, we're not going to talk as much about like how to negotiate a home inspection, as much as, you know, things to look out for and common things that come up when you're buying a house in Seattle. So we're going to plumb Jeff's knowledge about homes and inspections here. But before we do that, we always do a real estate minute and a mortgage minute. So Dan, why don't you give us a quick mortgage update, and then I'll give us a little real estate update before we transition into the topic.
Yeah, in under 60 seconds, just more positive news coming out of, call it the Fed, call it the government, but the mortgage industry has seen a little bit more relief. Now, the last couple of weeks, we saw a massive improvement in interest rates. This week, not so much of an improvement, but it didn't get worse. Yeah. So we saw a slight improvement in mortgage rates, which all I'm going to say is we're moving in the right direction. We've seen the Fed talk about their plans for reducing the Fed rate in 2024 by up to 2.75 points. Now, remember, the Fed rate is not mortgage rates, right? So remember, the Fed rate isn't mortgage rates. They're not directly related. They're indirectly related. But the reason why the Fed
That's a big deal, Dan.
It's a big deal. Yeah, because if you go back and you look at last year when the Fed raised the Fed rate as much as they did, let's just say 2.75 points, you can also correlate what that meant in regards to how high interest rates, mortgage rates went with that 2.75 jump, and it was a big jump. So we can't speculate how low mortgage rates will go next year, but with the Fed saying that they'll make some cuts next year, you can definitely expect mortgage rates to continue falling down through 2024.
That's big news. And I think on the real estate side, that will have really big ramifications as well. And as interest rates come back down, more people are going to get back into the market. Yep. You're going to see more of the move up buyers buying and selling. And we're also going to see prices climb, I think, as a result. What I was going to mention today, though, more than that, was just home inspections. You alluded to it at the beginning that there is an opportunity right now for buyers to do a home inspection after making an offer, and their offer's accepted. They don't have to do it ahead of time. And they're also able to, in some situations, negotiate the terms of the contract, maybe get some closing costs covered or reduce the purchase price. So I think for buyers, there are a lot of great things about buying right now. Prices are down. Yes, interest rates are higher, but that's temporary. But the ability to have more favorable terms is huge. And Jeff's going to help us, learn how to have a great home inspection experience and also kind of learn how to look at houses and consider houses here as we talk.
And remember, the podcast, we created this podcast, Zach and I did, to help inform people that we're moving to or buying in Seattle. And I think a big part of that is understanding, and we'll learn this from Geff today, that when you buy up in the Pacific Northwest, there's things that you want to specifically look at compared to maybe buying in other parts of the country or living in other parts of the country. And then the other part of it is what caused you and I to even go down this road to get Geff in ASAP is we had an opportunity about a week ago to work together on a transaction. And watching you kind of negotiate through the inspection period, I said, Zach, this is really important information that I think homebuyers don't understand, that they can kind of manipulate what'd you call it, a pass or a fail inspection?
Yep.
into the contract versus, a 5-day full review. And what it did is it gave the seller peace of mind that they're not going to come back and nickel and dime them. Your best offer on that home was your best offer.
Yep.
It's either pass or fail. We're either going to continue moving forward if we like the home inspection, or we're just going to cancel the whole deal, but we won't come back to you and ask you to reduce the sales price. And I was like, this is one I love that we're talking about this right now.
That was with an offer that waived the inspection. They didn't even do an inspection at all.
That's crazy.
So who wins in that scenario? Yeah. Well, my client wins, right?
Yeah. So that's why we're here.
Too.
Yeah, that's why we're here today. So this is going to be really fun.
So, but we always, before we talk about home inspections, we always dive into the local aspect of living here because, and I also think that this podcast is helpful for homeowners. Mm-hmm. If you live here, this is going to be helpful for you, even if you already own a home.
Yep.
But also considering moving here or new to the area, we always like to highlight the city that our guest is from as well. So we can get to know the community, and also get to know the different neighborhoods. And so Geff is joining us here today. Geff, you've lived in Shoreline for a while, I believe. How long have you lived in Shoreline?
I first moved to Shoreline in 1995. So we're going on a few years. I don't want to age myself here, but yeah, I've been in the area.
Geff, you just did.
That.
Yeah, you just did. I was going to say, Geff, you're old. Is that what you just said?
I had a rental for a couple of years, about 3 or 4 years before I was able to purchase a home.
Okay. How much did you buy your house for, by the way, in 1995?
I don't even want to say.
Don't be embarrassed.
Get mad at me. It was $187,000.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Good for you.
So,
What's Zillow say your house is worth now?
Actually, I think the last time I checked was right around the 600 mark.
It's not a bad return.
Not bad at all. And I just got lucky, honestly. I mean, I always knew buying real estate was a good idea, a good plan long term, but I don't think anybody could have predicted this, how much things have gone up.
That's fair. I think everybody feels lucky, but
definitely
everybody looks lucky in the long run. What neighborhood do you live in, Shoreline?
So I'm in the Ridgecrest neighborhood, about a one light, 1 minute off of I-5. I bought because of that. I worked construction back in the 90s and early 2000s, and I wanted to be close to the freeway and close to Seattle and not too bad if I had to go north or south.
Yep.
And it was ideal, for that commuting. And also compared to Seattle, Shoreline the lots were a little bit bigger, and there was a bigger chance for me and my hobbies, which is cars, getting a shop in the back. So I ended up finding a house that had a 2-car shop in the back, a 1-car attached garage, as well as a yard.
That's amazing.
On a corner lot. And I was the first person to walk through the house and just told the guy I'd take it.
Wow.
So, yeah, I got really lucky on that one.
Now, what has changed, or how has Shoreline evolved since you've been there? You've been there a long time. So
exponential growth. It has been insane, especially with the light rail coming in now. We've seen a lot of apartment buildings and condos going up in the area, a lot of the older buildings getting knocked down.
Yep. Especially on the east side, right, by where you're at.
Yeah, definitely on 15th. Even Aurora with Sears shutting down and that whole area getting launched up with apartments closer to Costco as well. And I understand it because Shoreline honestly is a great neighborhood, and it has been for as long as I've lived there. I just love it. So
that's awesome. So if you were talking to somebody who new to the area or even considering moving here, how would you describe Shoreline to them?
I would describe Shoreline as definitely not a 10 in the walkable department. You're going to probably want a vehicle to get around.
I would agree.
A lot of the positives of living in the area for me were just a little bit out of the city, but close enough to get to the city for events. If you want to go to any sporting events, any concerts, any good restaurants, great restaurants, that sort of thing. And as well as it's an easy jump to get to the freeway to go to the mountains.
There you go.
You've got the water right down the street in Richmond Beach.
Dan lives in Shoreline, by the way, and so do I. So this is really the Shoreline club right now.
Yeah.
So for me, it's just close to everything in my life. So it's been an excellent place to live.
That's great. Dan, did you want to jump in with any questions? I got a few more here.
Yeah, no, I think Shoreline's a great community. Obviously, we live there. We chose to finish raising our family here, and I agree with Geoff. Like it's we're season ticket holders for the Mariners, and we can make it to T-Mobile Park in rush hour traffic in 30, 45 minutes. We make it home in 20 minutes. Yeah. It's not bad. I think one of the things you mentioned was light rail. I think transit. Yep. Lots of city transit that goes through Shoreline. So you can catch a bus into downtown, transit into downtown. You got the light rail right on the other side. And then you've got, the neighboring cities. If you want to go north, you got Edmonds and downtown Edmonds, which is what, a mile and a half away. So
yeah, it's not far.
Our last podcast was with Bill Kessler, our state attorney, and he's an Edmonds guy, and it was all about Edmonds. So if you want to learn more about Edmonds, it's the neighboring city to Shoreline. And then if you head south, you got Ballard and Northgate. So there's just it's a great little community, and it's like you just said, it's to say it's growing would be an understatement. I'm looking at stats right here. Year over year, 13% appreciation. So that's not bad.
Nope.
And then you've got a wide variety of homes. I mean, without kind of going too deep into real estate, you've got apartment living, you've got condo living, you got townhomes, you've got single family homes. And then as you head down the hill, you've got water view and waterfront. So it's an incredible community.
Yeah. And, what's interesting is Shoreline, we were talking about going other places to do things. We're talking about Edmonds. We're talking about Seattle. So I think we would all agree that Shoreline isn't necessarily the place if you like to go to coffee shops and restaurants, and you're not going to live in Shoreline because you can walk to those things or you have that as part of the community, but you can easily access those things. Yeah. So that to me is distinctive about Shoreline. Would you guys agree?
Oh yeah. And I was looking at, this is funny right here, that I read an article that showed the top 3 cities that people are moving from to Shoreline. This blows my mind. Louisville, Kentucky is number 1. San Francisco and LA is number 2 and 3. And so these are people that are moving here to work downtown Seattle, most likely.
Yeah, but they don't want to necessarily live in the city. But Shoreline used to be Seattle.
Yeah.
And Geoff, did you buy a house in Seattle or did you buy a house in Shoreline?
I bought shortly after Shoreline came in.
Yeah, it was incorporated, in 90, really close to when you bought, because I drive by the sign every day.
I thought it says 96.
Yeah.
Literally that was like, I think it was a year before. So I actually bought my house. I believe it was, was it 99?
Okay. And you moved to Shoreline when it was Seattle, but then you bought when it was Shoreline.
Correct. Yeah. It was incorporated in 95. Yeah. So you bought right after. Yep.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Yeah. So Shoreline used to just be North Seattle.
Yeah.
And if you go in and you're looking at maps, sometimes it still says Seattle and it's confused.
Yeah. And I actually spent a lot of time as a kid in what used to be considered North Seattle when I went to go see Santa Claus at Frederick and Nelson at the Aurora Mall. It was what was it? The Aurora Village Mall.
Yeah. Well, isn't that where Costco is now and all that?
Yeah. And it was basically, I think it was Washington State's only outdoor mall at the time.
Yeah.
And it was just, even as a kid running around back in those days was a great area. My grandparents lived in Broadview. And so we would still, take the bus all over the place, as a preteen. And you could still go anywhere, go to the Northgate Mall, go anywhere in that area. So
I will put a bow on this with the fact that, and I know you appreciate this because you've done some blogs on this, Shoreline does have great parks. You've got
amazing
couple of parks up top, and you've got a couple down on the water, saltwater park, where you can actually have events and barbecues. And you've got Caillou, which is down in Richmond Beach near where we live. So if you wanted to take your dog down onto the beach or go to a dog park, just further north in Edmonds. But Shoreline has some really great parks.
And there's a pretty sweet little bowling alley.
And a bowling alley. Yeah, they just
not
renovated.
Everywhere has a bowling alley anymore. So we still have a bowling alley. Spin alley for the win.
Yep.
No, I love it. Well, I think we can all agree that we enjoy living in Shoreline. You've got the east and the west side too, right? So Geoff, you're over on the east side of Shoreline. We're on the west side. So west side's a little bit more the, beach, water, and then you've got better transportation and, you've got some good parks over there on the east side too. So, and the schools, I would say, is another distinguishing factor. I mean,
school district's great.
We definitely don't want to miss that.
So would you be Shorecrest if high school over there where you're at?
Actually, it is Shorecrest.
It's Shorecrest.
Shorewood, I believe, is on the
Shorewood's on our
west
side. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, there's a debate about which one's better. I think the people on the other side think that the Shorecrest side, the east side of the freeway, has the better schools. They're not that bad on the other side either. So
no, they're excellent schools.
Well, let's transition to home inspections, and I think this is going to be a very important discussion for people.
For sure.
And I love getting your knowledge about Shoreline, but this is a important topic when you're thinking about moving somewhere.
Right.
And I would say, first question I have for you is what makes a home inspection essential for people buying a house in Seattle specifically?
Peace of mind. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense to waive an inspection, especially these days. I understand why people might have when the market was crazy and there's 20 offers per home and this and that. One thing that I've noticed as far as how the current market has affected my industry is the timing of it. Even just a couple of months ago, pre-inspections were the thing. And when I say pre-inspection, they're all pre-inspections, but I'm talking about a pre-sales inspection from the seller. And the seller would then provide that to people coming in, knowing that there's going to probably be multiple offers. And all of the buyers, the chances that they would have time to write in their own inspection clause and get that done by their own inspector were minimal. So they would use that pre-inspection. What we're seeing now is there's a lot more time. It's more favorable for the buyers, so they can actually call a list of home inspectors, go with the one that they're more comfortable with, not judging by price. Hopefully you guys do not judge a home inspector by this price.
It's a factor.
Because it's not like you're buying a gallon of milk at the store. This is a service provided. So you're going for peace of mind. So
let's real quick hit pause on that because I think price is important. And if you are thinking about buying a home or moving here one day, it is a part of the process. You do want a home inspection and you will get a home inspection most likely. What is on average in the Seattle marketplace, the price for a home inspection?
The average, I would say, is right around $500 to $550, and that's for 2,000 square feet or under.
There you go. So that's important.
Average single family home.
Yeah, that's important to know. And we were talking off camera before, and you were telling me that someone reached out the other day and was like, "Hey, can you match this or can you do this?" And a home inspection, kind of like a physician or an architect or a contractor or a builder, is not someone that you're going to go to and base your decision off of $100 or $150 difference in price. Like this is something where you're paying for the recommendation from your realtor, you're paying for the pro, you're paying for the advice, and then what you and I were talking about is you're paying for the peace of mind.
Yeah, and it really is important to go with who you're comfortable with, who has the most experience. Like I was saying earlier, it's the service, right, that you're paying for, and it's always going to be worth that extra $100, $50, or whatever.
Yeah, good.
You get what you pay for. That's the old adage, right?
Exactly. Yep.
So what would you say is on your checklist when you're going through a home inspection? What are the things you're looking at? What can people expect?
So basically, it's going to be a top to bottom inspection. One of the number one issues that we have in the Northwest is obviously the weather, right? So water intrusion is going to be number one. I mean, we basically live in a rainforest, so we're going to want to check that out more than, if we get a lot of people, and which we do, we have a lot of people moving here from the Midwest, from the East Coast, from California. Everything's different geographically speaking, right? So in the Northwest, we're going to more have crawl spaces than say basements or just slab on grade foundations. So we're going to be looking for things involved in the structure in the crawl space. If that's done correctly, rodents is a huge thing in the Northwest as well. We don't really have any natural predators. So that's an ongoing issue. It's going to be an ongoing issue if you currently own a home. Get that looked at because it's Mother Nature and it's just a continuous battle. Then starting at the top, we're looking at the roof, the windows, the siding, the HVAC system, plumbing system, and so on. So all of the major components of the home. I see a lot of homes in this area that are structurally excellent, but just need some updating. So we're going to run into things that are deficient code-wise. So if the house was built within the last 5 to 10 years, then great. But a house that's built in the 60s is going to be the structural integrity may be there, might even be built probably using a better quality material by better workers, but we're not going to have the electrical system up to date, or we might have some old plumbing, but these things can add up. So.
Yeah, you definitely went into my next question, which was, kind of some of the differences between some of the older houses and newer houses.
Right.
But Seattle has a lot of different types of houses. You've got some newer townhouses. You've got houses that are built in the early 1900s. You have houses built in the 50s. Would you say there's any distinctives between those houses, or certain things that you run up against in the older houses that you might not run up against in the newer houses? Yeah,
on the older homes, we're not going to see things like seismic retrofitting, which is something that I recommend on probably 98% of all of the older homes that I run into. We're just not ready for the big earthquake that we're going to get.
Okay.
And then electrical and plumbing, is going to be a big one. I still run into houses with oil heat occasionally, things like that. That
was like one of the main ways houses were heated back then.
Correct. Yep. And it's not necessarily deficient, still working, but everybody that has oil heat usually wants to get rid of it. And,
I just sold a house with oil heat.
Yeah.
Still had oil heat. And that's what one of the things the buyer said.
And how much did that cost you per year in oil?
It was cheaper than, it was like, I would say between $1,000 and $1,500 a year.
That's not bad.
But you don't really use it in the summer.
Right.
And we also had 2 wood burning fireplaces and stove inserts. So we used those as well.
Nice.
That and oil are both great for the environment. But that's what our house was set up with. So we didn't fix what wasn't broken.
Right.
The plan was always to update it at some point. But again, we never did make any changes because what I believe the original furnace, those good old thermoprides, that thing was still going from the 50s.
And easy to replace if anything goes wrong.
Oh, super easy.
Just the motor.
Yeah, the mechanics are super simple. So for us, we didn't fix it. We didn't replace it. We just kept doing it. It was an above ground oil tank as well, which is nice because you can see if there's any issues.
Any leaks.
Yep. So that's a good insight though for us.
I know this has come up. I don't want to call an audible here and spend too much time on this, but this has come up before with me sitting down and having mortgage planning meetings with people moving from out of the area into this area. And I do talk about, because they ask questions, and I said, hey, one of the great things about Seattle is we don't have these poisonous snakes and spiders that can kill you. Right.
No, everything's not trying to eat you here.
Yeah, I say you can blame Ballard for this, but a bunch of rats came over way back in the early 1900s from another country, and so we have mice and rats. But what I always encourage them, so every home that I've ever owned has had pests, right? You have a little service that comes by once a month, and they mediate that, but one of the things I encourage them to do is to attend the home inspection. Tell me if I'm giving bad advice here, Geoff, but attend the home inspection or talk to your home inspector about maybe areas that you see, which you obviously would address, where these pests might be getting into the house, and then maybe some other tips to prevent these little guys from getting in the house. Can you kind of elaborate on that for a second?
Well, I think you nailed it with the maintenance program, especially if your home inspector finds a rodent intrusion, and that's a current issue or it has been in the past. You want to ask the sellers, if they've been on a maintenance program, and then if not, obviously the crawl space or attic or wherever or both is going to need to get remediated, repaired, and then hopefully they're going to go in there basically with just some spray foam. I did it at my house. It's fairly simple to do. Basically, you're crawling into a dark crawl space. If you see any light coming out, through the foundation and sill plate, that sort of thing, then just squeeze some spray foam in there and. Yeah, but the maintenance is definitely the ticket because it's going to be an ongoing thing.
Yeah, maintenance.
Well, this wasn't really an audible. It was perfect because my next question was, with our climate in the Pacific Northwest, what would you say are some of the things that you run up against the most? And what are some of the maintenance items that people can be doing to keep their home in good shape?
As far as the weather goes, I'll see things like leaky roofs, siding damage, deterioration, wood rot, that sort of thing. And then we're talking about, then I'm going to refer out for a pest inspection for some wood destroying organisms are the possibility, because those two go hand in hand. Water in the crawl space, that sort of thing, under the garage doors. Basically, like I said earlier, water's our number one enemy here. So we really want to pay attention to that. And it is crazy the amount of water that can get through just the tiniest hole and cause damage. As anybody that has probably a tile shower that they didn't, or tile baths around that they haven't paid attention to, you get those little cracks in the tile. Next thing you know, you have to remodel your entire bathroom.
That's no fun.
No. And amazingly enough, for the damp weather that we have in Seattle, I really don't come across a lot of mold. It's one of those buzzwords that the media has, the black mold. Well, the thing about black mold is it's the same as mold's mold. so it's kind of gotten everybody still concerned, which by all means.
Don't you call it like organic growth now?
Yeah. So because we're not mold inspectors,
that's fair.
It's a separate license. So we have to kind of skirt around that. But definitely when it's visible, we're going to be calling that out for further testing. But a lot of it, you'll just see some typical mold underneath the kitchen sink, or something that is easily taken care of by the future homeowner with just a simple bleach water solution, that sort of thing. But we do see quite a bit of staining in the sheathing on the underside of the roof, from the attic. And they sell a simple spray solution to get rid of that. That's not going to go after what the issue was, though.
No.
Basically, that almost always comes down to warm air actually escaping into the attic through either can lights or inside the walls that were something that we're not aware of.
Maybe a vent that's not connected to the exterior.
Exactly. A bathroom vent. Pushing more moist air up into the attic after some time. So, yeah.
What about new construction? What are some of the common issues that you run into with new construction homes? And maybe is it even worth getting a home inspection on a new house? A lot of clients that I talk with are like, I don't really want one of those. It's brand new. Why would I spend the money?
Well, that's one of the biggest myths of home inspections is it's such an expensive process to get into a home, and especially a new home. And people go, well, it's new. It's all brand new. I also have this warranty. But a home inspector is going to see way more than the average person. And that's why we get a home inspection, right? And the biggest things that I come across are just basically poor quality work. And I see that a lot on new construction. I've found mold on the underside of the floor, the subfloor. The entire crawl space was covered with mold. The list goes on. So basically, anything that you're going to find on an old house, the possibility exists on a new home. And it goes on from there. And it's kind of crazy, some of the stuff that I see. And it doesn't matter who the contractor is. What matters is who the subcontractors were. And how busy they are, if they're in a hurry, if it's Friday afternoon. I mean, I've seen some crazy stuff on new homes for sure. So
yeah, that's crazy. Well, I certainly encourage home inspections. You can usually get your money back and then some and even for a new house.
Yeah.
What about red flags? People always ask that question. It's one of the most searched for topics. What are some of the common red flags that you come in contact with that you would say these are red flags?
Right.
I'm also curious, what are some of the things that people are concerned about that maybe they're putting a little too much stock in or overemphasizing?
I don't know if you could really necessarily overemphasize really any part of the 5 major components of a home. So red flags, what I would consider a red flag for me is something that I need to weed out on the rest of the home inspection or look for, right? So if I start on the exterior typically, and then if I see some deterioration at, some of the trim, then I'm going to be looking at the siding. I'm going to be looking possibly for roof leaks, and I'm just, going to try to weed out anything that's associated with that. If I see some plumbing coming in that's galvanized, I'm going to be checking obviously the rest of the plumbing and try to get an in-depth for a percentage wise to find out how much of the plumbing has been updated, if any, and take care of that.
So what would you say the biggest red flags are that you come in contact with? When would you run for the hills if you were looking at a house and thinking about buying it?
So the average used home that I'm finding is going to have what 2 major defects.
Okay.
If it has 0, that's great. And we're talking roof, plumbing, electrical, HVAC system, structural issues, right? So if I get into a house and I climb up on the roof and the roof is shot, it's going to need a new roof immediately, then that's kind of a major expense. So I consider that one red flag.
Okay.
Then I get down and the windows haven't been updated and they're, single or double pane. Aluminum framed windows. I'm like, well, they're going to need new windows too. They've got blown seals. They're, there's condensation on the inside. And then I look at the siding and like, well, you're going to need new siding as well. And then I get further into the house and I find out that they haven't really updated anything. So we've got older plumbing, older electrical. Then we're way above the average number of defects.
Yep.
So if I get into a home and it's this rough same era house, but they've done, a great remodel job, say like I see this on a lot of flips where they've done the complete interior, dumped 150 grand into
it looks
remodel.
cosmetically beautiful.
It's just awesome. But then I get into the crawl space and they haven't touched it. They haven't even, or they have, but they already know that, hey, that's not necessarily going to stop a sale on the house. Yeah. And then I get into the attic and they haven't touched it either. I'm like, well, there's your two average.
Man,
defects.
rats in a crawl space or attic in a flip.
Yeah.
Massive red flag to me.
Yeah.
And that's
Because then what else did they skip?
Right. And that's that's where the discrepancy comes in too, because, and then I'm going to start going, well, what about the plumbing? And, are they using just stuff from Home Depot?
Yeah.
Is this a low quality
Was it done right?
Yeah, exactly. And what I'm looking for too is finishing touches.
Yeah.
And just minor stuff like caulking around the windows on the inside of the home so that we're not going to have air gaps and that coming in as well.
I've seen you tell clients, hey, are you sure you want me to keep going? Would you like to just be done? You can pay me less. We'll just be done.
Because you saw so much.
Yeah.
So many red flags up front.
Multiple times.
Yeah.
And obviously,
that's
everybody has a different threshold. If your goal is to buy a fixer-upper, you're getting a really good price, you just kind of want to know what you're getting yourself into. You're going to make those repairs.
Yeah.
You don't care that the roof's leaking. You're getting a discount for that. But if you're not wanting to do all that stuff and you need to, that's a big problem.
Yeah.
It's huge. And I do that because I don't know what the clients are wanting until I ask. And then at that point, I can usually tell, and I think most home inspectors can within the first 10 minutes of being, on the outside of the house and inside the house. And then you just kind of look at, it only takes a few minutes to kind of glance over things. And then it's like, all right. And then you're already into the 6 figures in the first 5 minutes of repairs. Some people are looking for that. And if that's what they're looking for, then okay, great. Then we'll make the decision later and go ahead and spend the money now with you. But if not, I don't want to waste the client's money, and spend 2 hours on site, 2 hours at home, have them waste the money and have everybody waste their time. If it's, not something they're looking for. So.
Yeah, you have to understand that you're on their side. Your best advocate and your safety net is your home inspector in regards to the product that you are purchasing. And I think that's really, really important. I think what I heard you say too is if you're walking into a flip, your mindset now shifts to a different space, if you will, for what you're looking for, right? Because if they cut some, hey, wow, this looks really great, but if they cut some corners elsewhere, all right, where else do they cut corners? Or if you go into an older home, or even let's just say an 80s or a 90s home, and there's massive deferred maintenance, what else haven't they paid? If they're not paying attention to stuff that we all see, what else could have they not paid attention to, or what else could have gone wrong? So I absolutely love that about that. One of the, I talk with a lot of first-time home buyers, more so about their financing options. But one of the number one questions, because we're coming out of a pre-inspection era, is, are you guys held accountable to a higher power, if you will? Meaning, if a seller did a pre-inspection and says, hey, I already had an inspection done on the house for you to view compliments of the seller, should I believe that, yes or no?
It's a great question.
Yeah, and then, and I guess to back that, you have a license.
Yeah.
You are, the work that you do is held to a certain standard backed by a certain body, yes?
Yep. Yeah, so we basically have the Washington State license and the standards of practice that all inspectors have to adhere to.
Cool.
Not that, like I said, with a service, you're going to get a certain percentage that don't care to do their job very well, or may want to stay in the real estate agent's good graces, and the real estate
Certainly.
agent doesn't necessarily want them to report on stuff. It is an unfortunate part of the industry, but it's just kind of the way it is. I mean, if you get, if you're buying, say, a mid-century modern 1950s Seattle house, and you end up with an inspection report that's like 12 pages long and just doesn't tell you a whole lot, you're going to want to get your own inspection.
Okay.
At that point, if you get one of mine, where there's, I don't know, 100 plus pictures and the report is 60 pages long, don't necessarily be fooled, but chances are good that your agent will be able to go over things with you and tell you whether it's a good report.
It has enough
or
information.
not. Yeah.
It's thorough. Yeah.
Exactly. You want something that's thorough.
Yeah.
So, on that same topic, pre-inspections do happen. And when it is competitive, there's pretty low inventory. So sometimes houses are still selling and you don't have the time or the ability to do an inspection ahead of time. How reliable are those for buyers?
Again, it depends on the inspector, 100%, and on the inspection report. I've actually come in after a pre-sale inspection was performed, and there wasn't much written about the crawl space, and come to find out that there was actually trenches built around all of the structural components, heavy rat infestation. Easily a six-figure repair, to the structure.
That's scary.
And that was barely mentioned in the report. So. Fortunately, that agent knew to get their own inspection, and what we did on that one was didn't bother putting in an offer on the home, didn't take it off market or anything like that, and it was a verbal inspection from me. So quite a bit of a discount. I came in and everything looked great, and of course the crawl spaces last, and then I found those issues and took pictures and videos for the client and the agent, and they were shocked.
Wow.
Now that's, fairly rare, I hope.
Yeah, I was going to say, just like bad realtors and bad lenders and bad doctors and bad teachers, that's the far end of the spectrum. I think there's a lot more in the median, the middle, that value their license, that value their career, that value their job, and know that.
And just value people.
Yeah, and value people. Yeah, right? Humanity. That I have a job to do. I'm going to produce the report. So don't let that scare you, but it's good to know that. I appreciate you bringing that up. Yeah.
So, Geff, what inspection tips do you have for buyers?
For buyers?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're a buyer. What tips do you have for them when they're looking at a house?
So basically ask questions. Inspectors are going to be different. They're going to have a different process. Some want the client to walk with them through the house. Some, like myself, prefer to go through the home distraction-free and then go over everything at the end and then show the client everything so that they're familiar with what's going on with the home when they get the report, right? So that muscle memory kicks in from our conversation. We're definitely there to teach. So that's a big part of my job is teaching my clients about the home. So
I love that about you, by the way.
Things like where the main water shutoff is, the breakers, the gas shutoff, what sort of a tool might be needed to get those off in the event of an emergency. And then if we're talking Shoreline, then I'll talk a little bit about the area as well.
Shoreline Pro.
Shoreline Pro. So, there's a lot to it. But I think the most important thing from my point of view is just trying to explain to my clients in lay terms about, what's going on with the home.
Mm-hmm. And you do sewer scopes as well, right?
I do sewer scopes now, yes.
Do you think that's an important part of the process?
Extremely important, just as important as the home inspection itself, because a sewer repair these days can easily hit $12K or more.
That sounds low.
And we do have a lot of trees in the area, a lot of hills, just everything. So, and a lot of older plumbing, and even on new construction, especially if there used to be an old house in place and that was knocked down and then a new home was built up. I've seen it where they haven't done anything to the sewers.
It's important.
To the sewer line. And we're talking, $1.2 million house that you think everything's brand new on, and it has, a concrete sewer line that's failing. So
what on average is average cost for a sewer scope?
They're roughly around $250, give or take.
Yeah. So, I've seen like $250 to $400.
Yeah. Pretty good investment.
And you do that all as one package, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What, I guess on the flip side, what would you tell a seller if they were trying to prepare for a home inspection, whether that was before a pre-inspection or the house is on the market? What can they do to get their house ready for that inspection so that it looks better when you come through?
Yeah. So, well, common smaller ticket items, right? So, CO detector on each floor, smoke detector on each floor and in each bedroom, earthquake straps on the water heater.
How many do they need?
2 earthquake straps on the water heater.
I knew the answer.
Placed on the top third and bottom third, metal. So things that are going to get us past the next step, right, to the appraisal. And once the appraiser comes in, he's not going to red flag those items. That's typically what the appraisers are looking for.
Yep.
And then obviously all the things that you would want to do to get the most money. So new paint, good floors, landscaping, curb appeal, that sort of thing.
And you shared some of the things already that buyers are going to be or should be the most concerned about.
Yep.
And so those would be things to address.
Yeah,
if you know there are problems already, take care of them.
Yeah. The advantage on a pre-sale inspection is if you get somebody that thinks that their house is worth $1 million because the remodeled home down the street sold for that much, I'm going to come in and give them more of a realistic, hey, here's your list of items.
Hey, there's 50 grand in work you need to do to this house
you've
to
got
get it to
older appliances,
worth that much.
which means the kitchen hasn't been updated, bathrooms need updating, all of this. So it really does help just give everybody kind of a realistic price point as well.
Yeah. And I think sometimes sellers already know a lot of the things they need to do, either deferred maintenance they haven't done or some, issues that they've had that they've put off.
Yeah.
If you just take care of those ahead of time, it sure makes it a lot easier.
For sure.
Yeah. Last question, and we're going to wrap this up. What stories do you have, or do you have a story that you want to share with us? We were talking about a haunted house off camera, but do you have any just like, oh man, that was a really memorable moment off the top of your head?
So I'm trying to rack my brain right now to see which ones are fit for talking, because I've come across the typical hoarder houses. I've come across houses where the owner has passed away and everything's been in probate for months or even a couple of years, and the house has sat empty. I've done houses pre-flip that are in extremely poor condition. But I've also had the pleasure of inspecting really high dollar homes on the east side, on the waterfront, in gated communities. Everything from those to mobile houses. So it's an enjoyable career, and it has been for me because I've just get to see the complete spectrum. So
yeah, you get to see the undercover look at real estate. We get to see the
behind
glamour.
the scenes.
And you're the one that's doing all the dirty work. So we really appreciate you for that. Well, thanks for joining us today, Geoff.
Thanks for having me.
I always learn a little bit from you every single time we talk about inspections. I also really appreciate the work that you do.
Thank you.
Yeah. Hey, Geoff, if someone's listening to this and they just want to have a question, run a question by you, or they're another professional in our industry that might want to talk about doing some business with you, what's the best way to get in touch with you? Are you on social, or do you just prefer email, phone? What's the best way to reach you?
Yeah, you can give me a call at 206-234-7779, which actually spells my last name.
Okay.
And then obviously I have a website.
Yeah, what's your website?
Hawkseye.org. HAWKSEYE.org.
Go Hawks.
Yeah, and we'll have all of your info in the description, both here on our podcast and on YouTube. But I really appreciate this. Was super valuable, and I can't wait to share this with people that I get to help on the mortgage side.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Well, sounds like that's a wrap. So goodbye, Seattle.